He is 100 years old, and he is still dancing. Not in memory, not in old footage, right now. In a world that has buried most of the people who shaped him and moved on from the era he helped define, Dick Van Dyke is still here. But the man the world thinks it knows and the man who actually lived this life are two very different people. Behind that smile, the one that made millions of households feel like everything was going to be fine, was a childhood built on emotional distance, a career that spent 15 years being told no, a battle with addiction that nearly cost him everything, and a marriage of 36 years that did not survive the wreckage. Dick was born on December 13, 1925, in West Plains, Missouri, a small town that offered little to dream about. His father was a traveling salesman, rarely home. His mother held the household together quietly. The home was functional, decent, and emotionally sparse. Not cruel, but thin on warmth. Thin on the kind of sustained affection that teaches a child he is worth something simply for existing. What saved young Dick was performance. He discovered early that making people laugh changed the temperature of a room. He wasn't performing for applause, he was performing to be seen. And in a household where being seen wasn't guaranteed, that distinction meant everything. In 1944, he was drafted into the Army Air Forces. Too underweight to become a pilot, he was assigned as an entertainer for troops. It wasn't storming beaches, and Dick said so plainly in later years. But what those years taught him was that laughter in the middle of fear isn't a luxury, it's oxygen. He came home in 1946 with no money, no connections, and no clear plan. What he had was an unshakable certainty that he was meant to be in front of an audience. The entertainment industry disagreed, repeatedly. For 15 years, he moved from city to city chasing opportunities that kept slipping away. Radio announcing in Atlanta, comedy duo performances at small clubs, auditions in New York that led nowhere. He slept in cheap rooms and performed wherever anyone would have him. In 1948, he married Margie Willett, a patient and devoted woman who held the household together while Dick chased stages. They had 4 children. He loved them, but love, as he would eventually have to reckon with, is not the same as presence. The breakthrough finally came in 1959 when he was cast in the Broadway production of Bye Bye Birdie. Every rejection letter, every near miss, every night of doubt poured into that performance. In 1961, he won the Tony Award for Best Actor in a Musical. He was 35 years old. The relief on his face when his name was called wasn't triumph, it was the particular exhale of a man who had refused to stop believing in something everyone else had abandoned. Television followed. The Dick Van Dyke Show premiered in 1961 and became a cultural landmark, winning 15 Emmy Awards over 5 seasons. Then came Walt Disney himself, personally selecting Dick to star alongside Julie Andrews in Mary Poppins in 1964, a film that earned 13 Academy Award nominations and became one of the most beloved in history. His Cockney accent was, by universal agreement, spectacularly inaccurate. Dick acknowledged it freely, laughed about it openly, and eventually apologized to the British people on live television. The audience laughed with him. They always did. But in the private hours, something darker was growing. The drinking had started quietly, a drink after filming, a drink to fill the silence of a house that felt empty despite everyone in it. He was functional, professional, decorated. From the outside, nothing was wrong. From the inside, the distance between the man the world saw and the man pouring himself a drink alone at night was widening every year. He entered treatment in the 1970s, not with fanfare, but with the private shame of someone finally acknowledging what they had refused to see. His marriage to Margie ended in 1984 after 36 years, not dramatically, but with the quiet sadness of two people who had grown too far apart to find their way back. Recovery brought Diagnosis Murder, which ran for 8 seasons on CBS and introduced him to an entirely new generation. But the greatest surprise of his later years came in 2012, when at 86 years old, he married Arlene Silver, a makeup artist 46 years his junior whom he had met at the SAG Awards in 2006. The skeptics did the math loudly. Dick and Arlene appeared unbothered. What was visible to everyone who encountered them was not performance, it was two people who were simply, recognizably, almost stubbornly happy. Arlene became his fiercest advocate, pursuing answers for the debilitating headaches that had plagued him for years when Dick himself had made peace with the pain. When the condition was finally identified and treated, he credited her without hesitation. He had spent his childhood in a house where warmth was rationed. He had spent decades performing for the affection of audiences because the private version had always felt slightly out of reach. And then, at 86, he found it. Not Dick Van Dyke the legend, just the boy from Missouri who had always wanted to be seen. At 100, he still lives near the Pacific. He still moves. And when the music is right, he still dances, not for cameras, not for applause, but because the body remembers what brought it joy. That, more than any award or milestone, is his most honest performance.